Hey everyone, imagine a couple, once in love, now estranged, embroiled in a court battle over something most people would never think twice about: a handwritten trust deed signed in a bedroom during a time of grief. This is not a scene from a drama series, but the real life legal saga of BOM and BOK, a landmark case in Singapore that changed the way courts look at unconscionable conduct in contracts. Let's rewind to the beginning. A man and woman got married in 2012, but it wasn't your typical honeymoon story. His mother disapproved of the marriage. He lived with his mother at Holland Road. She lived with her parents at Stevens Road. For most of their marriage, they stayed apart. Then in 2014, tragedy struck. His mother died. In his grief, he moved into the Stevens Road home to live with his wife and her family. Shortly after the funeral, the husband and his sister discovered something unexpected. Their late mother had left a will, a testamentary trust, two landed properties. The wealth was preserved and protected. But instead of sharing this with his wife, the husband lied. He told her that everything had been left to charity. What happened next would become the center of a courtroom storm. The wife, herself a former lawyer, scribbled a handwritten document that evening, a deed of trust. It stated that all of the husband's assets would be held in trust by him and her jointly for the benefit of their young son. When the husband came home that night, the wife invited him into the bedroom and asked him to sign the deed. He hesitated. He was grieving, vulnerable. He refused at first, but eventually he caved and signed the deed. Now here's where it gets murky. The husband said he only signed the deed because the wife told him that it will not take effect until he died, that he can still control his assets, that she threatened to kick him out if he didn't sign. The wife, on the other hand, claimed it was his idea, that he wanted the trust and that he signed it willingly. Fast forward a few months, the marriage broke down. The emails started flying. The solicitor handling the mother's estate was notified of the trust by the wife. The husband wasn't even copied on the emails. Eventually, the husband consulted his own lawyers, and in late 2015, the husband went to court, asking the court to set aside or cancel the deed of trust. The husband argued that the deed of trust was invalid due to misrepresentation, mistake, undue influence, and unconscionability. And guess what? The High Court agreed. The wife and son appealed. The case went all the way up to the Court of Appeal. In a historic judgment, the highest court in Singapore clarified the law on unconscionability once and for all. Let's break this down in simple terms. First, the doctrine of misrepresentation. The court found that the wife lied about when the trust would take effect. She knew it wasn't true and told him anyway, knowing that he will rely on it. That's enough to set aside the deed. Secondly, the doctrine of mistake. The husband thought the trust only applied after his death, but in reality, it stripped him of his assets immediately. That's a serious mistake, enough to make the deed void. Third, the doctrine of undue influence. The husband was grieving, emotionally fragile, and living under his wife's roof. She knew he was vulnerable and used her closeness to pressure him into signing. The Court of Appeal said that this was undue influence. Bullying or importunity can be just as damaging as threats or manipulation. Finally, and most importantly for legal development, unconscionability. The court firmly rejected the broad doctrine of unconscionability, which would have given judges wide discretion to cancel contracts they didn't find fair, too subjective, too unpredictable, and too dangerous for contract law. Instead, the court endorsed the narrow doctrine. Here's what it means. If someone is suffering from a serious infirmity, whether physical, mental, or emotional, and that infirmity was obvious to the other party, and the other party took advantage of it, the court can set aside the transaction. The deal must be shown to be fair, just, and reasonable. If not, it can be undone. The Court of Appeal made it clear that you don't always need evidence of poverty or lack of education. Emotional vulnerability, like deep grief, can also qualify. In this case, the husband was grieving and lonely. The wife knew this and used it to get what she wanted. So therefore, the deed was declared void and unenforceable. Now, what's the takeaway here? This decision is a powerful reminder that the law is not blind to human frailty. Contracts are not just pieces of paper. They are rooted in consent, in free will, in understanding. When a person is broken by grief, pressure, or manipulation, the law can step in. As lawyers, as human beings, we must remember not all wounds are visible. Some are emotional, spiritual, intangible, but they affect decisions. They affect consent. And just because someone signs on the dotted line doesn't mean it's truly their will. In law, as in life, we must learn to see beyond the surface, see the suffering, see the causes, see the impermanence of all things, relationships, wealth, power. Let us not cling too tightly to the external forms, but instead seek clarity, compassion, and balance. Because at the heart of justice is not just the law, but the wisdom to know when something isn't right, even if it appears legal. And that perhaps is the deeper teaching from this case. Thanks for joining me in this case summary. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.